I'm going to be joined again briefly by Elliott Forrest, who's taking a break from waiting downstairs. You might as well wait up here.
Might as well wait with you.
Right?
You're a total hero.
I'm
You're like congressman. You're amazing.
I'm filibustering.
It's amazing
I'm having a filibuster.
that you can keep the floor going here.
We were talking backstage. It's very fascinating, your moonlighting jobs, what you do with working with symphony orchestras. I'm fascinated by the kinds of projects you've done.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. Well, I mean, it's over the last several years, many orchestras, including the Fort Worth Symphony, have all been incorporating visual aspects more and more. But
what is the thinking on that, do you think? Why have orchestras gone to incorporating visually more in their concerts, both in classical and pops?
Right, it doesn't have to be one or the other. Well, I think it's a couple of things. One, for more than 100 years, opera and ballet have all been theatrical. At the same time, for the most part, symphony orchestras bring up white light, men and women walk in like penguins, they play, and then they leave. So the idea that you can make that experience a little more theatrical, I think, seems natural to me. And also, we're at a time when, with CNN, there's a crawl underneath it, so audiences can definitely absorb more information than just the music. And then there's a lot of creative artists that have created visual material for these kind of concerts that allow for these multimedia experiences. And as you and I were talking off camera earlier, there's new technology that allows different companies to strip out the music from West Side Story and Back to the Future and Raiders of the Lost Ark to allow that experience of having a symphony orchestra play. I remember seeing John Williams conduct the New York Philharmonic with just 15 minutes of E.T. underneath it, and I thought, I don't want to go to the movies anymore unless the New York Philharmonic is playing live while I'm there, because it's an awesome experience.
It's as an orchestra member myself in my real life, that's what I do. We've done several of these retrofitted kinds of programs, and the orchestra itself usually doesn't have a click track. Only the conductor has had a click track for pieces like Wizard of Oz, for instance, and it's very hard. It's very difficult because human beings are not robots, and in 1939 they did not go by a click track, but we have to retrofit that to 1939 in the Wizard of Oz. It's very difficult to do.
Right.
We're going to do E.T. actually next year, and we've done other things as well, like a whole Hitchcock evening, where I think that the orchestra did have click tracks. It was not possible to do it otherwise.
The other part of this is interesting, and I don't know how deep you want to get into this, buddy.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. For a long time, this kind of music, the symphony, there was a symphony world and there was movie music, and the twains were not meeting.
Right.
And there's a lot of theories about this. There's a lot of discussion about this, about the acceptance of film scores and film score writers in the symphony hall. Is it really classical music, or does it belong with symphony orchestras? I, of course, think it does. Max Steiner and Bernard Herrmann, Wolfgang Korngold, and straight through to John Williams and Danny Elfman, and all the people that are composing now, I think is extraordinary. And there's no doubt that the majority of people in the world hear a symphony orchestra more from the movies than they do from the concert hall. So to marry those two together, I think, is important for symphonies to do.
But what you're doing, your products have not been simply stripping a movie of its music and putting it up there and having an orchestra play. You have these very creative things.
Well, a symphony will come to me and they'll say, we want to do Appalachian Spring, or we want to do this particular piece, can you add visuals to it? And the interesting thing for me in talking about the click tracks is that I go and run this with the symphony. I'm there every time I do it, and I tell the conductors the same thing, which is, I'll follow you. So there's not a click track. They do it, and from night to night to night, with William Boughton and the New Haven Symphony, we did 4 performances of Appalachian Spring. It's about 20 minutes. Sometimes it's a little faster, sometimes it's a little slower.
Because they're human beings.
Because they're human beings, and they're reacting in the moment. So with the visuals, I follow the orchestra. There's no click track. It's not the same every night. It's almost like playing a musical instrument, and that's made a big difference.
So you're talking to a conductor, you're saying you agree that you're going to put visuals to Appalachian Spring. Then what goes through your head? What is the next step? You look at it. I mean, there are a lot of things. I mean, there's footage of Martha Graham dancing Appalachian Spring. There are pictures of Appalachian Mountains. I mean, where do you go in your head from there?
Well, it's a good question. In this particular case, I said to myself, I wonder what's out there. So I started to look at Appalachia imagery, and I found at that time, the 11th annual Appalachian Mountain Photography Competition. And now I'm looking at 11 years of flora and fauna and people and mountains and landscapes. And I contacted the executive director of the photography contest, and I said, can we partner to have these images put up on the screen above a live orchestra? Do you have the legal and moral rights for me to have these images? He said he did, and that became the basis of it. Then I went out and shot stuff myself. I go out and shoot things myself. I needed something to be
You're talking about taking pictures.
taking pictures and video.
Not shooting a turkey.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
I'll go out and shoot video and imagery. I took video of, it was actually a neighborhood trail, playing the role of the Appalachian Trail, but I wanted to have the trail be represented somewhere. So I shoot my own video. When I did a tribute to the 200th birthday of Abraham Lincoln at Lincoln Center, I went down to Washington and I shot both video and stills of the Lincoln Memorial. So it's a mix of things. I acquire imagery, I work with other photographers, I shoot stuff myself, and I try to make. I try to sit by the watchword of something's going to be beautiful, something's going to be heartwarming, and something's going to be funny. So I want humor and heart and beauty.
Do you want? That's great. It sort of anticipates what I was going to ask, which is there an arc to the thing? Do you try to describe an arc in the images which corresponds to the music or not?
Yeah, I think I did this interview once with Laurie Anderson, and she says I'm a big believer in beginning, middle, and ending, but not necessarily in that order.
Right.
And I'm a big believer in that order. I like that order. That order appeals to me.
You're a traditional guy.
I think beginning, middle, and ending. I like a little order. I like that things sometimes come back and repeat, that there's a motif somewhere, especially when I follow the music. The first one I ever did at the Hollywood Bowl with John Maucheri and the Los Angeles Philharmonic was the last part of Götterdämmerung. And I sat with John for hours and we went through the score because Wagner wrote the stage directions. And so he would start the music and then he'd stop and he would say, hear that theme? That's the Rhine River theme. If you're going to have something visual to represent the Rhine River, this is the moment to do it because the Rhine River has a theme. And then he'd start again, and then he'd stop, and then he'd go, this is a Turkish instrument, it's a cymbal crash, this is what's happening. We'd never heard a cymbal crash until Wagner put it in. It would be in this, and then this is where the fire happens. So I try to have the imagery come from the music. I want the music to tell me what to do. I mean, if you're doing an outdoor concert and it's pops, it's easy to do fireworks and confetti, which I've done in certain cases. But if it's a little bit more of a serious piece, what is the music saying? And I try to bring out the music. The other thing I like to do is I never want to forget there's 110 light people on there. Some of my colleagues who do these visuals turn out all the lights on the orchestra and you never see them. Maybe you stand lights and it's almost like watch the movie, forget that there's live players. I like to light the orchestra so you never forget that it's a live orchestra experience.
That's what's different about your business card. That's what I couldn't put my finger on, but I could see the orchestra.
Yeah.
Above, and you were projecting onto a scrim also. I think.
But you could see the players.
You could see the players.
Oh, I think that's extremely important. Yeah.
We're not really used to that in the movie shows we've done. Yes, we have had stand lights.
Right.
And for those shows, often we wear all black instead of tuxedo, nothing white.
Right.
So it's just an all black mass out there. So good. We like that you want to see the orchestra. That's important for the audience as well. I think, to remember that there are live people on the stage playing the music. It becomes part of the show rather than we're going to do this visual thing and play for it. Play with it.
You've been there as well. You've been on stage, and I couldn't help but think today with these amateur Cliburn finalists today that they're surrounded by the Fort Worth Symphony, and I've placed people, whether they're actors as narrators, I've placed people for the first time on stage in a symphonic setting, and every one of them has the same reaction. It's like, I can't believe what it sounds like to be around a live orchestra and be this close. I've talked to conductors basically, and I sometimes ask them, you just basically have the best seat in the house.
Right.
And I think that's why people come to the audience, why they come to Bass Hall, is to have that live experience of hearing the orchestra. It's not just speakers set up like they could hear the same symphony at home. Of course they could, but there's something connecting with a live player or a group of live players, and I think that's important.
It's been interesting hearing you talk about that. I'm thinking of our conductor for the afternoon, Damon Gupton, who comes from two worlds. He comes
an
from
actor,
he's an
too.
actor,
Right.
and
And
most
a
people
conductor.
know him as an actor. I've certainly seen him. I've seen him on Empire. I've seen
Right.
him on The Player, and you turn your TV on. There's Damon. He's on a lot. And he came to us for the first time in January this year as a conductor. And we've read, he's conducted Baltimore Symphony, all these things, and he was the assistant conductor in Kansas City for a while. But you're really not prepared for how good Damon is going to be once he gets on the podium. He's really, really a good conductor. He is not.
Or is he just acting like a
No,
conductor?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think we could figure that out. It's not like Lucille Ball with her cymbals, you know.
Right.
But it's not a Danny Kaye type proposition where
No,
you know
no. He knows what
Damon.
he's doing.
There is
And he's
real
trained.
knowledge there, and there is real authority there on the podium, and I marvel at that kind of bicameral brain that will allow him to do
One or the
two
other, or both.
things or both.
And it doesn't
yeah.
hurt. He's a good-looking guy too.
Yeah, and he's just the total package, Damon
yeah,
Gupton.
yeah. He's been great.
Elliott, thank you so much.
You're welcome, buddy.